If you ask 5 different family members and 5 different friends what role they think Hishtadlut, doing your part, plays in the ability to actualize potential, you're going to get 42 different answers, right? Jews are overly opinionated. On the one hand, everybody will agree with each other on certain premises, on certain foundational aspects. On the other hand, everyone is going to have a nuanced and slightly varying opinion. Additionally, each person will have multiple opinions. That's the reality of Jewish ideas and ideals. We grow up being taught certain ideas, and as we mature ourselves, we formulate understanding around it. We make sense of it, place it, and essentially come up with our own ideas on top of the ideas. In this episode, we are going to take a look at what role Hishtadlut plays, how it interacts, and what its relationship is with faith. My current understanding of Hishtadlut, in the way that I'm going to describe it, is a culmination of introspection, analysis, and personal life experience. Sure, it has some of its roots in Jewish ideals and tradition, but I'm not claiming to know the secret. I'm not claiming to have figured out the formula. Divine functions are just that. They're divine. They're hard to put a finger on. That doesn't mean that we can't get close. It's just that when you do get too close, it'll manifest itself differently. In fact, just by me sharing this, the humor, they say God's humor. The humor of God is like, oh yeah, you think you figured it out? I'm going to show you. And that's okay. You just have to understand that it's not an exact science. It's what I've come to understand after observing and analyzing it. For everyone, it may be different. What I'm going to share may lend some insight for some people, but it's not end all be all. And I'm not claiming it as the truth. It's just another opinion. So instead of 43 or 42, we could have 44 or 45 opinions. What is Hishtadlut? Hishtadlut is translated as doing your part, or your part in things. So if Hishtadlut is effort, but it refers more to my necessary effort, that is more or less how we think of it in the Jewish world. When somebody says, do your Hishtadlut, it means do your part. Obviously, it refers to effort, but it's do your part. It is the part that is reliant on you. It's the responsibility that you have in the grand scheme of things. And being that religious Jews live their life with faith that God sends your income, faith that God takes care of you, faith that everything that happens or happened was for the best, and all of the principles that come along with Emuna, we are often forced to ask ourselves, what role does Hishtadlut play? If God does everything, if God takes care of me, if God provides my income, so on and so forth, what role does Hishtadlut play? How hard do I have to work? What is my effort? I believe I have figured out a simple formula for understanding what role Hishtadlut plays and how it intersects with Emuna, how much effort a person needs to put in. I have created a Venn diagram. If you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify, you could look at the screen and actually see the diagram that I created to help illustrate it. But that is what I will explain here. There's 3 separate concepts that we need to understand first. Emuna, Hishtadlut, and devotion. So there's a third ingredient called devotion, which I will explain, that has to come into the equation here, because without it, you can't solve this complexity, this question. First and foremost, if you don't know, Emuna is the full and complete faith in one loving God. There's 3 core pillars of Emuna, if you will. Hashem does everything. Everything Hashem does is for your good. And number 3 is that everything that Hashem does is for a reason. Those 3 pillars make up the hemisphere within which Emuna sits, which ultimately trickles down to beliefs such as Hashem takes care of me, Hashem takes care of my income, so on and so forth. So there's Emuna. And then in the middle we have Hishtadlut, effort, the allotted amount of hard work and effort that a human being has to put in, has to invest. And on the left side you have devotion. Devotion is, think of it as Hishtadlut, but specifically for spiritual things. So devotion is the amount of work and the effort that you put in to get close to Hashem, to do mitzvah, to do good deeds, to do spiritual things, essentially. Currently, and at the outset, think of 3 circles. You have Emuna, Hishtadlut in the middle, and devotion on the left side. Right side, middle, left side. So you have these 3 circles. These 3 circles are going to essentially encompass the equation, and understanding how they interact will help solve this complexity. Some people believe that if you have a lot of Emuna, you don't have to do a lot of Hishtadlut. If I believe with unwavering faith that God is going to provide, I don't have to do Hishtadlut. That is a false belief, because you cannot just have faith and sit on the couch. It's simply not how it works. Maybe you will say there was an individual here or there that has done so. There's always exceptions to every rule, but the klal, the general rule of thumb, is that it does not work. In fact, if you do know somebody who has such strong faith and sits on the couch, I would venture to say that they're not sitting on the couch, they're actually doing a lot of devotion. So you need the third element, which is devotion. So I don't believe you could achieve your goals just with faith. I believe Hashem created a physical world where we have to put in Hishtadlut, our effort. This episode is a lot about how much effort. But first we have to understand the premise in general, that you cannot just achieve things with faith. You have to put in effort. How much effort we're going to talk about. The second thing you need to understand is that you cannot just achieve things with Hishtadlut. You can't just achieve things with effort without any faith. Even if your faith is reduced down to such simplistic, material-based faith, there's still faith. For example, when you're working hard, let's say you're not even a theist, you believe that you believe in nothing. Just the belief that you have in yourself, the belief that you have in working on the project and seeing the project through, all of those things have some ingredients of faith related to it. Hence, you're able to actually achieve. Hence, you're actually able to pull through and have the energy and the strength and the vision to work on whatever you're working on and achieve some results. The proposition that you have zero faith even in yourself or what you're doing, and you have zero faith in God, and you just put in effort and you're achieving stuff, very difficult to believe. It's not very coherent if you reduce it down to its fundamental parts. So I believe you cannot achieve results just with faith, without Hishtadlut. You cannot achieve results with just Hishtadlut. And the same goes for devotion, if we're already, not that it matters so much in this vein, but the same goes for devotion. You can't achieve closeness to Hashem with just devotion without the faith. You have to have faith. You can't achieve devotion, true devotion and closeness to Hashem without Hishtadlut, without effort in the physical sense. So all of these 3 rely on each other in one degree or another. If we start with a blank slate, that you're a human being on planet Earth, you know nothing about God or faith, so all you know is physical work and results of that work, you will have a circle right in the middle. All 3 of these circles would be meshed right in the middle, and it would just say Hishtadlut, effort. Okay? Now you could start from either point, but I'm visualizing. I'm trying to help you visualize the scenario inward to outward instead of vice versa. So let's just assume you know nothing about God, faith, devotion, any of that stuff. All you know, you're a physical being working a physical job. All you know about is effort. In that case, all 3 of these circles would start out in the middle, and there wouldn't be 3 ingredients there. It would just be Hishtadlut. It would just be effort. As you begin to learn about Emuna and devotion, and you begin to work on developing your Emuna and your devotion, the 3 circles will begin to spread out. Consequently, by Emuna and devotion spreading to the right and to the left, you will have the center become smaller and smaller visually, and that's essentially the formula for how much Hishtadlut we need to put in. The more you develop your Emuna and increase your devotion, the less Hishtadlut you have to do. It's really that simple. The opposite is true as well. The less developed your Emuna and devotion are, the more Hishtadlut you have to do. Why is that? Well, there's a couple reasons. First of all, the Emuna that I'm talking about, when we talk about developing Emuna, it's not the type of Emuna that you could acquire overnight. Say you're 18 years old, for the first time you're learning about Hashem, you're learning about faith, you're learning all these principles and stuff, and let's say you listen to this episode and you're like, you know what, I want to have 100% Emuna, I'm going to devote myself to getting close to Hashem, so I don't have to work. It's impossible to do that. Because truly developed Emuna is Emuna that has gone through experience, is Emuna that has been developed by an individual who has gone through experiences, hardships, overcoming certain things, learning through time how flawed your own Emuna is, and continuously developing it out further and further. So in order for Emuna to completely separate, for your Hishtadlut to become less and less of a necessity, in order for that to happen, you would have to have gone through years and years in this world as an adult, going through hardships and learning and ups and downs in order for that to even be a reality. So don't occupy the fantasy that it's just something you learn, you implement, and you could achieve. Incorrect. This would explain, I believe, one of the reasons why, as you get older, you could potentially work less than somebody who's younger. Why is it that a 30 and 40-year-old has the ability to work less hours and make more money than an 18 and 20-year-old? Well, you might say it's simply because they have more experience and they have more opportunity and they know more people. But that's on the surface, outer shell, the physical layer of it. But on an intrinsic level, we're essentially saying the same thing. That experience that you speak of, having gone through those experiences, having learned trial and error, having built up more faith and belief in yourself, in the world, in the universe, in God, essentially allows you to make smarter decisions, wiser decisions. It gives you more insight. And how do we know that it's not just physical? Because you could have 30 and 40-year-olds that don't work less. They simply work harder and harder as they get older. So you could have a 30-year-old or a 35-year-old, let's say, has achieved a certain level of clarity where he could sit now and work 4 hours a day and he makes all his income. And then you could have a 35-year-old who's now working 15 hours a day and is struggling to cover. What's the difference? This one over here wasn't blessed with the clarity that this one over here did, even though both of them put in, let's say, an equal amount of Hishtadlut the first 10 years of their working career. So it's not just a physical thing. You can never explain it away just by experience and physical effort. There's an aspect of spirituality, divine blessing wrapped up into it as well. So that's Nakuda number one, to understand that even if you understand this and you want to implement this type of Emuna and devotion, it's not something that you could just implement. It's something you simply have to work on as you grow and go through this journey of life. The more you dedicate yourself to it, the deeper levels you achieve, automatically they will continue to separate and you will find yourself having to do less and less Hishtadlut. I noticed this partially because I would observe the patterns of my own life. I noticed that there wasn't necessarily a correlation between how much effort, Hishtadlut, I was putting in and what my income looked like. There were periods over the past 15 years where income was stronger, and then there were periods when it was weaker, and I never saw any association. Now, you have to be deeply introspective to analyze this stuff, but truly keep track. Let's go back 10 years. I'm motivated. Law of attraction, thoughts of abundance. I'm motivated. I go to work. I'm going to work 10, 15 hours a day, and I'm going to have all the right thoughts. Although it helped me feel a certain way and I felt great and it led to a great life and all this stuff, it didn't necessarily contribute to my income being higher, more sufficient, able to cover me. Now, I don't have to be so deeply involved in all those thoughts and that energy. I simply rely on Hashem. I put in my effort to get close to Hashem. I put in a little bit of Hishtadlut into physical work. And the money comes easier. So what's the difference? And it's been like that over the years, up and down, trying different things, operating on different energy levels, tapping into different energies. And a lot of them are great. It just doesn't necessarily equal your necessity. And it was through these ups and downs and observing very closely what I am and am not doing and what I am and am not achieving that it becomes clearer and clearer that there's two things that work really well hand in hand. Emuna and devotion. Emuna and devotion. You have to continue to build out your faith, but it has to be accompanied with devotion. If you just have faith, you sit and learn the Garden of Emuna all day. Thank you, Hashem. You're in the clouds. You sit on the couch, you watch Netflix. It doesn't work. But if you're building out your Emuna and you're demonstrating, meaning you're not a living contradiction, you're demonstrating to Hashem that you want a life of spirituality, you want a life of getting closer to Him, of learning Torah. So you start putting in physical effort on the spiritual side, hence devotion. So you're building up Emuna, you're implementing devotion. So you're showing Hashem, it's not just that I don't want to work hard and make an income. I want to work hard as a human being. I just don't want to work hard in the physical realm. I want to work hard in the spiritual realm, and I'm doing it. I'm doing all that I can. If I only have an hour or two a day, I'll spend it learning. So you're demonstrating, you're not a living contradiction. You're demonstrating that you're actually living on that frequency that you believe in. And when you do that, all of a sudden there's blessings, abundance, things that you can't imagine. And by default, that also means, as I explained, that the Hishtadlut gets less and less. The necessity for it gets less and less. And this could be an up and down battle. It's a daily, struggle, because who has the energy every single day to sit and learn and to sit and get close and personal prayer? Many people do, but many people also don't. I know how difficult it is for myself. So you could have weeks, periods that are weeks or months long where it's really going because you're feeling it. You're doing all the right things. Your faith is strong. Your devotion is strong. You're working very minimally. Somehow you're covering. Hashem is blessing you from every direction. And then you could have some months where it withered away. You were weaker. You fell. You got lazy. The devotion is not as strong. The Emuna subsequently withers. All of a sudden, you're faced with financial struggles and you need to go do a physical job and you're trying harder, and it's just not the abundance. It's not the shefa. It's not raining. And through these patterns, if you observe, you will see exactly what I am demonstrating here. So the equation is quite simple. The more you develop your emunah and devotion, the more it separates from the middle and it leaves the hishtadlut smaller and smaller until it becomes close to nothing. The less developed your emunah and devotion is, the more physically bound you are, and you have to play by the rules of nature. I hope this episode was insightful. I pray that Hashem gives you the strength and the clarity to understand and see the value in dedicating your life to getting close to Him. And with Hashem's help, may it be His will that we actually do so. Thank you.
Leave a like and subscribe.